The stars looked different in this part of space. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of the Mindful Observer, watching the view screen with calm eyes. His blue-scaled hands rested behind his back as he studied the endless darkness ahead. The Zephyrian ship moved through the neutral zone with quiet grace, its sensors always watching for something new. "Commander," called Science Officer Crix from his station. His voice carried excitement. "I'm picking up something on the long-range scanners." Veltar turned toward his old friend. Crix had served with him for 20 years. The science officer's orange eyes were wide with interest as he studied his readings. Veltar walked over to look at the screen. "What do you see?" Veltar asked. "A ship, sir. Unknown design. It's big. Really big." Crix's fingers danced across his controls. "The computer can't match it to any known species in our database." Veltar felt a flutter of excitement in his chest. First contact with a new species was rare. The Zephyrian Collective had met 17 different spacefaring races over the past 300 years. Each meeting had brought new knowledge and friendship to the galaxy. "How big is it?" Veltar asked. Crix checked his readings twice before answering. "Nearly twice our size, Commander, maybe bigger." The sensors are having trouble getting exact measurements. The Mindful Observer was not a small ship. It was one of the Collective's largest exploration vessels, built for long journeys into unknown space. If this mystery ship was twice as big, it was truly massive. "Any signs of life?" Veltar asked. "Yes, sir. The bioscanners show life forms aboard. They appear to be in some kind of sleep state, maybe hibernation for long space travel." Veltar nodded. Many species used sleep technology for long journeys between stars. It saved food and air during months or years of travel. "What about their technology level?" Veltar asked. Crix studied his screen for a moment. "Hard to tell from here, but their power output is very low, much lower than ours. The ship looks old, maybe primitive by our standards." Veltar felt sympathy for these unknown beings. Space travel was hard for young civilizations. Their first ships were often crude and dangerous. The Zephyrians remembered their own early days among the stars, when ships sometimes failed and crews were lost in the dark. "Set course to intercept," Veltar ordered. "Slow approach. We don't want to frighten them." The Mindful Observer changed direction smoothly. Veltar returned to his command chair and activated the ship's communication system. "All hands, this is the commander," he announced. "We have detected an unknown vessel. We will be making first contact with a new species. All crew members are to follow standard protocols. Be respectful and careful. This could be a historic day." As they got closer, the mystery ship became clearer on the view screen. Veltar studied it with growing confusion. The design was unlike anything he had ever seen. Where Zephyrian ships were smooth and curved, this vessel was all sharp angles and flat surfaces. Thick armor covered every part of the hull. Strange bumps and towers stuck out in odd places. "Commander," Crix said softly, "look at all that armor. Why would they need so much protection?" Veltar wondered the same thing. The ship looked like it was built to fight, not explore. But many young species built their first ships this way. Space was dangerous, full of rocks and radiation. Maybe these beings were just very careful. Their design is very different from ours, Veltar said. But remember, every species builds ships based on their own needs and fears. Communications Officer Zira looked up from her station. "Sir, should I prepare a first contact message?" "Not yet," Veltar replied. "Let's learn more about them first. Crix, can you do a basic scan? Nothing deep or invasive. Just enough to understand their biology so we can communicate properly." "Already working on it, sir," Crix said. His hands moved over his controls. The basic scan shows they are bipedal, like us. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. Their size is similar to ours, maybe a little smaller. They seem to breathe oxygen. "Good," Veltar said. "That will make things easier." The Mindful Observer moved closer to the mystery ship. Veltar could now see details on the hull. Strange symbols were painted on the side in white letters. The ship's surface was scarred with what looked like impact marks. Some areas had been repaired with patches of different colored metal. "This ship has seen some action," Veltar observed. "Yes, sir," Crix agreed. "Maybe they ran into space debris or small meteors. Or maybe their technology isn't good enough to avoid collisions." Veltar nodded, but something felt wrong. The damage patterns looked too regular, too focused in certain areas, almost like weapon impacts, but that was impossible. No civilized species would attack a ship this size without reason. "Commander," Crix called out. I'm getting some interesting readings from their hull composition. The metal is very thick, much thicker than it needs to be for normal space travel. And there are some strange energy signatures from inside the ship. What kind of energy signatures? I'm not sure. They're very faint right now because most of the ship's systems are powered down. But there are dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all along the hull in regular patterns. Veltar frowned. Could they be sensors or communication arrays? Possibly, Crix said, but his voice sounded doubtful. Commander, there's something else. The computer is having trouble identifying some of the ship's components. There are structures inside the ship that don't match any known technology. Unknown technology isn't unusual for a new species, Veltar said. Every race develops differently. But privately, Veltar was beginning to feel uneasy. This ship was strange in too many ways. The heavy armor, the battle damage, the unknown systems. It was starting to look less like an exploration vessel and more like something else entirely. Sir, Communications Officer Zyra said. Should we try to wake them up? Send a signal to activate their communication systems? Veltar considered this. Standard first contact protocol was to observe first, then make contact when they understood the new species better. But these beings were asleep, probably unaware that anyone was nearby. Not yet, he decided. Let's gather more information first. Crix, can you do a deeper scan? I want to know more about their technology and biology before we wake them. Crix hesitated. Sir, a deep scan would be more invasive. It might activate some of their systems accidentally. Do you think it could be dangerous? No, sir. Their technology seems much simpler than ours. A deep scan shouldn't cause any problems. Veltar made his decision. Do it. But be careful. Monitor everything closely. Crix began the deep scan sequence. New information started flowing across his screens. The mystery ship's internal structure became visible, showing corridors, rooms, and sleeping areas filled with the unknown beings. Fascinating, Crix murmured as he studied the data. Commander, you need to see this. Their ship design is completely different from anything we've encountered. It's like they built it to survive massive damage. Veltar looked at the scans with growing concern. This wasn't the ship of a peaceful exploration crew. This was something else entirely. Something that made him very uncomfortable. But it was too late to stop the scan now. Deep in the mystery ship, systems that had been sleeping for months began to wake up. Lights flickered on. Computers started running. And in the sleeping quarters, the first of the crew members began to stir. The humans were waking up. Crix watched his screens fill with data as the deep scan continued. Information poured in faster than he could process it. The mystery ship was revealing its secrets, and each new discovery made him more confused. Commander? Crix called out, his voice tight with concern. Something's happening. The scan is activating their systems. Veltar moved quickly to Crix's station. On the screen, they could see lights turning on inside the mystery ship. Corridors that had been dark for months were now glowing with soft illumination. Can you stop the scan? Veltar asked. I could, but we're already deep into their computer systems. Stopping now might cause damage. Crix's orange eyes were wide as he studied his readings. Sir, their computers are waking up, and they're trying to scan us back. This was not normal. Most species had simple computers that took time to start up after long sleep periods. But this ship's systems were coming online with frightening speed. What kind of scan are they running? Veltar asked. Everything, sir. They're scanning our hull, our weapons systems, our power output, our crew size. It's very detailed and very fast. Crix paused, looking worried. Commander, they don't scan like explorers. They scan like soldiers. Veltar felt a cold fear growing in his stomach. What do you mean? They're not looking at our science equipment or communication systems. They're focusing on anything that could be used as a weapon. They want to know how dangerous we are. This was wrong. Very wrong. Peaceful species didn't wake up ready for battle. They woke up curious about new friends, not worried about new enemies. Keep scanning, Veltar ordered. We need to understand what we're dealing with. Crix nodded and continued his work. New information appeared on his screen every few seconds. He began translating their language using the ship's advanced computers. The process was slow, but words and meanings started to become clear. I'm beginning to understand their language, Crix reported. It's actually several languages mixed together. They seem to use different words for different situations. He paused, reading something that made him frown. Commander, I'm seeing something strange in their computer files. What is it? References to warfare, lots of references. Their computer systems have detailed files about weapons, battles, and military tactics. Veltar tried to stay calm. Many species keep historical records of their violent past. We do the same thing. Sir, Crick said slowly, these aren't historical records. These are current files. Recent battles, active weapons systems, ongoing military operations. His voice dropped to a whisper. Commander, I don't think these are explorers. The bridge of the mindful observer became very quiet. Every crew member was listening now, understanding that something was terribly wrong. What else can you learn about them? Veltar asked. Crix continued reading from his screen. They call themselves humans. Their ship is named the Retribution. According to their files, it's a battleship designed for long-range combat operations. The word battleship hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. In the 300 years since the Zephyrian collective had reached the stars, they had never encountered a true warship from another species. War between planets was something from ancient history, not modern reality. Are you certain? Veltar asked, hoping his science officer was wrong. Yes, sir. Their computer files are full of weapon specifications, target lists, and battle reports. This ship carries enough firepower to destroy entire cities. Crix looked up at his commander with frightened eyes. Sir, they have weapons we've never even imagined. Veltar tried to process this information. How could a species build ships designed only for destruction? What kind of civilization created vessels whose only purpose was to kill? Tell me about their weapons, Veltar said, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Crix read from his screen with a shaking voice. Kinetic cannons that fire metal slugs at incredible speeds. Energy weapons that can burn through our strongest armor. Missiles that can track targets across vast distances. He paused, reading something that made him go pale. Commander, they have nuclear weapons, lots of them. Nuclear weapons. Veltar had read about such things in ancient Zephyrian history. Weapons so terrible that his people had banned them centuries ago, even before they reached space. The idea that anyone would put such weapons on a spaceship was horrifying. What about their crew? Veltar asked. What kind of beings would operate such a ship? Crix accessed more files. According to their records, there are 847 humans aboard. All of them are soldiers, warriors trained for space combat. He read more details. Sir, their youngest crew member has been in 5 different battles. Their oldest has been fighting for over 20 years. 847 soldiers. All experienced in combat, all trained to kill. Veltar realized that his exploration ship, designed for science and diplomacy, was completely helpless against such a force. Commander, communications officer, Zyra called out urgently. I'm detecting power surges throughout their ship. Major systems are coming online. On the view screen, they could see the human ship changing. Lights were appearing in new patterns. Strange structures were extending from the hull. The ship was transforming from a sleeping giant into something active and dangerous. Weapons systems, Veltar asked, though he already knew the answer. Yes, sir, Zyra confirmed. Energy signatures are appearing all over their hull. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Crix continued reading from the human computer files. Commander, I'm finding their mission records. This ship was sent to patrol the border between human territories. They're looking for enemy ships to destroy. Enemy ships? Veltar asked. They fight with other humans? Yes, sir. According to these files, humans are divided into different groups that constantly fight each other. This ship belongs to something called the United Earth Forces. They're at war with the Mars Colonial Alliance and the Jupiter Mining Consortium. Veltar couldn't believe what he was hearing. This species was so violent that they fought wars among themselves while exploring space. They had turned the galaxy into a battlefield. Sir, Crick said, his voice barely above a whisper, I'm reading their tactical manuals. They have detailed plans for fighting every type of spaceship they've ever encountered. Different strategies for different enemies. Do they have plans for fighting us? Crix checked his readings. Not specifically for Zephyrians, but they have general plans for dealing with unknown alien vessels. The first step is always the same. Assume hostile intent and prepare for immediate combat. Before Veltar could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the mindful observer. Red lights flashed on every console. Commander, Zyra shouted over the noise. They're targeting us. The human ship is locking weapons onto our position. On the view screen, the human battleship had completed its transformation. What had looked like a sleeping transport vessel was now clearly revealed as an instrument of war. Weapon ports glowed with deadly energy. Missile launchers were aimed directly at the Zephyrian ship. How long until they can fire? Veltar asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Their weapons are already charged, sir, Zira reported. They could destroy us right now if they wanted to. Crix looked up from his station with terror in his eyes. Commander, I just accessed their targeting computer. They've already calculated exactly how to destroy our ship with minimum effort. They know our weak points better than we do. Veltar realized that his decision to scan the human ship had been a terrible mistake. He had awakened something that should have been left sleeping. Something that saw the universe as a place of enemies and threats, not friends and opportunities. The humans were fully awake now, and they were ready for war. Crix could not stop reading the human data files. Each new piece of information was more frightening than the last. His hands shook as he worked at his console, translating more of the human language and accessing deeper parts of their computer. Systems, Commander, Crix said in a voice barely louder than a whisper. I'm reading their crew records now. These humans, they're not like any species we've ever encountered. Veltar moved closer to Crix's station. Around the bridge, other crew members had stopped their work to listen. Everyone understood that they were learning something terrible. Tell me, Veltar said. Crix pointed at his screen. Their captain is named Sarah Chen. She's 34 years old, but she's already fought in 12 major battles. 12, sir. Most Zephyrians live their entire lives without seeing a single violent conflict. Veltar tried to imagine what kind of life would involve 12 battles before the age of 35. In Zephyrian society, violence was so rare that most people only read about it in history books. What else? Veltar asked. Their weapons officer is 28 years old. He's an expert in something called orbital bombardment. According to his file, he's destroyed 6 enemy cities from space. Crix's voice cracked. Sir, he's killed millions of people, and they gave him a medal for it. The bridge fell silent. The idea of deliberately destroying cities full of innocent people was beyond the Zephyrian understanding of warfare. Even in their ancient past, when their people still fought wars, they had tried to protect civilians. Crix continued reading. Their engineer is a specialist in combat repairs. She can fix weapon systems while under enemy fire. Their doctor is trained in battlefield surgery. Every single person on that ship is trained to kill and to survive being killed. Surely they have some peaceful crew members, Veltar said, hoping to find some reason for optimism. Scientists, perhaps, or diplomats. Crix shook his head. Everyone on the ship has a military rank. Everyone is a soldier first, specialist second. Even their cook is listed as nutritional support specialist with combat training. Veltar realized that humans had created something the galaxy had never seen before, a civilization where everyone was a warrior, not just the soldiers, but everyone. Even the people who made food were trained to fight. Commander, Crix said, his voice filled with horror. I'm reading their mission briefings. This ship wasn't just sent to patrol. They were specifically hunting for enemy vessels to destroy. Their orders were to eliminate any threats to human interest with extreme prejudice. The phrase extreme prejudice made Veltar's blood run cold. In Zephyrian culture, the worst punishment was exile from society. The idea of deliberately eliminating someone was unthinkable. How do they define threats? Veltar asked, though he was afraid of the answer. Crix read more of the human files. According to their tactical manual, any unknown ship could be a threat. Any ship with advanced technology is definitely a threat. Any ship that scans them without permission is considered to be preparing for attack. Veltar felt his heart sink. They had scanned the human ship without permission. By human standards, they had already committed an act of war. Sir, Crix continued, I'm reading their history files now. These humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. They've never stopped. Even when they reached space, they brought their wars with them. But surely they must have some peaceful periods, Veltar said. All species have times of peace. No, sir. According to their records, humans have been fighting continuously for their entire recorded history. When they're not fighting other humans, they're fighting their environment, their weather, dangerous animals, diseases, or natural disasters. They're a species that exists in a permanent state of conflict. This was impossible to understand. Zephyrian history included wars, but they had also included long periods of peace and cooperation. The idea of a species that never stopped fighting was like imagining a person who never stopped running. Crix accessed more files. Commander, their planet is called Earth. I'm reading the environmental data now. His eyes widened in shock. Sir, their homeworld is trying to kill them. What do you mean? Earth has violent weather that can destroy entire cities. Earthquakes that split the ground open, volcanoes that poison the air, storms that flood vast areas. And that's just the planet itself. Veltar tried to imagine growing up on such a world. Zephyr Prime was peaceful, with gentle weather and stable geology. The idea of a planet that was actively dangerous to its inhabitants was horrifying. The wildlife is even worse, Crix continued. Earth has creatures designed specifically to kill and eat other creatures. Predators with claws, teeth, and poison. Some of them hunt in groups, some of them are larger than our shuttlecraft. And humans evolved alongside these monsters? Veltar asked. Not alongside them, sir. In competition with them. Humans had to become better predators than everything else on their planet or they would have been eaten. Crix paused, reading something that made him gasp. Commander, humans are omnivores. They eat both plants and meat, including the meat of other intelligent creatures. The idea of eating another intelligent being was so revolting that several bridge crew members made sounds of disgust. Zephyrians had been vegetarian for millions of years, even before they became intelligent. There's more, Crix said. Humans don't just eat other creatures. They hunt them for sport. They have entire industries built around creating better ways to kill things. They've turned killing into entertainment. Veltar had to sit down. This was too much to process. Humans weren't just violent by necessity. They enjoyed violence. They had made it part of their culture. Sir, Crix said, his voice shaking, I'm reading about something called weapons of mass destruction. Humans have created bombs that can kill everything on an entire planet. Not just the people, but all life. Every plant, every animal, everything. Surely they would never use such things, Veltar said. They already have, sir, multiple times. They used nuclear weapons against other humans during something called World War II. They killed hundreds of thousands of people in seconds. The bridge was completely silent now. No one could speak. The idea of killing hundreds of thousands of intelligent beings at once was beyond comprehension. Crix continued reading. And that was considered a small use of such weapons. Their current nuclear arsenal could destroy Earth itself dozens of times over. But they keep building more weapons, because they don't trust each other not to use them first. They would destroy their own planet, Veltar asked. Yes, sir. They call it mutually assured destruction. The idea is that if everyone has the power to destroy everything, no one will dare to start a war. Veltar couldn't understand this logic. It was like saying that the best way to avoid falling was to remove the ground. Commander, Crix said, his voice barely audible. There's something else. Humans don't just fight wars against other humans. They fight wars against concepts. They have something called a war on drugs and a war on terror and a war on poverty. They literally declare war on abstract ideas. This was madness. How could anyone fight a war against an idea? It was like declaring war on the color blue or the number 7. Sir, Crix said, reading the final sections of the human database. According to their military doctrine, the best way to prevent war is to be so frightening that no one dares to attack you. They call it peace through superior firepower. Veltar finally understood. Humans had created a civilization based on fear. They made themselves so dangerous that others would be afraid to challenge them. It was the opposite of everything the Zephyrian collective believed about creating peace through cooperation and understanding. Commander, Communications Officer Zyra called out urgently. The human ship is hailing us. They want to talk. Veltar looked at the view screen, where the human battleship waited with its weapons pointed directly at them. After everything Crix had discovered, the idea of talking to these creatures was terrifying. But they had no choice. The humans were awake, armed, and ready for war. And somehow, Veltar had to convince them that the mindful observer was not a threat. He just hoped it was possible to reason with the species that had turned unreasonableness into an art form. Captain Sarah Chen woke up with the sharp alertness that came from years of military training. The hibernation pod's medical systems had injected stimulants into her bloodstream the moment the ship's computers detected the alien scan. She was fully awake and thinking clearly within seconds. Her first action was to check the tactical display built into her pod. Red warnings flashed across the screen. Unknown vessel. Active scanning. Potential hostile contact. The ship's artificial intelligence had already begun standard threat assessment procedures. Sarah pulled on her uniform and stepped out of the hibernation bay. Around her, other crew members were waking up with the same trained efficiency. No confusion, no sleepy stumbling. Within minutes, 847 human soldiers were at their battle stations. Sarah walked quickly to the bridge, her mind already working through the tactical situation. An unknown ship had found them while they were sleeping, and had performed what the computer classified as a military-grade deep scan. In human space, this would be considered an act of war. "Report," Sarah ordered as she stepped onto the bridge. "Lieutenant," Commander Torres looked up from the tactical station. "Unknown vessel, approximately half our size, currently holding position 1,000 kilometers off our port bow. They've been scanning us for the past 17 minutes. "What kind of scans?" "Everything, Captain. Hull composition, internal structure, computer systems, crew biology. They have accessed our outer computer networks and downloaded significant amounts of data." Sarah felt her jaw tighten. The aliens had not only scanned them, but had actually penetrated their computer systems. This was definitely a hostile act. "Have they attempted communication?" Sarah asked. "Negative, Captain. They scanned first without permission or warning." Sarah nodded. This fit the pattern of an enemy intelligence gathering operation. Scan the target, learn its weaknesses, then either attack or report back to a larger force. "What do we know about their ship?" Sarah asked. Torres consulted his screens. "Advanced technology in some areas, but minimal defensive systems. No obvious weapons that our sensors can detect. Very low power output for a ship of their size." This information made Sarah more suspicious, not less. A ship with advanced scanning technology, but no visible weapons, was either a spy ship or a trap. Either way, it represented a threat. "Could their weapons be hidden or powered down?" Sarah asked. "Possible, Captain. Their technology is unlike anything in our databases. They could have weapon systems we don't recognize." Sarah walked to the captain's chair and activated the ship's internal communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We have encountered an unknown alien vessel that has conducted unauthorized scans of our ship and crew. We are now at condition yellow. All crew members are to remain at battle stations until further notice. Department heads report to the bridge immediately." Within minutes, Sarah's senior staff had assembled. Commander Jackson from Engineering, Dr. Martinez from Medical, Lieutenant Colonel Williams from Security, and Major Park from Intelligence. "Options," Sarah said simply. Major Park spoke first. "Captain, based on their scanning pattern, this appears to be an intelligence gathering operation. They focused on our weapon systems, crew complement, and computer networks. This suggests they're either preparing to attack or gathering data for future attacks." Commander Jackson disagreed. "Ma'am, their technology level suggests they're significantly more advanced than us in some areas. If they wanted to attack, they probably would have done it while we were still sleeping." "Unless they're testing our response time," Lieutenant Colonel Williams added, "or waiting for reinforcements." Dr. Martinez looked uncomfortable with the discussion. "Captain, shouldn't we consider that they might be peaceful? They haven't attacked us or made any threatening moves." Sarah looked at her medical officer with the patience of someone explaining something to a child. "Doctor, they conducted a military-grade scan of our ship without permission. In human space, every government would consider that an act of war. We have to assume they know exactly what they're doing." She turned back to Major Park. "What does their ship design tell us about their capabilities?" "Very little, Captain. The design is completely alien to us, but our computers have been analyzing their scanning techniques and they're incredibly sophisticated. They know more about our ship now than most of our own crew members." Sarah made her decision. "We're going to establish communication, but from a position of strength. Torres, lock all weapon systems onto their ship. Make sure they know we're targeting them." "Weapons locked, Captain," Torres reported. "All missile tubes loaded and ready. Main guns charged and aimed." "Good. Now we're going to follow standard first contact protocol with unknown potentially hostile vessels. We demand identification, we establish our strength, and we find out what they want." Sarah activated the communication system. She had no idea if the aliens could understand human languages, but that was their problem to solve. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Forces Battleship Retribution. You have conducted unauthorized scans of our ship and crew, which we consider a hostile act. Identify yourselves immediately and explain your actions, or we will assume you are preparing to attack us." Sarah closed the channel and waited. Around her, the bridge crew monitored their stations with professional alertness. Every weapon system on the ship was ready to fire. The Retribution had been built for exactly this kind of situation. "Captain," Torres reported, "I'm detecting energy fluctuations on their ship. They appear to be discussing something." "Any sign of weapons powering up?" "No, ma'am. If anything, their power levels seem to be dropping, but that could be a trick to make us lower our guard." Sarah nodded. A fake power down was a classic tactical deception. Make the enemy think you're retreating or surrendering, then hit them when they're not ready. Maintain all targeting locks, Sarah ordered, and keep scanning them. I want to know everything about their ship's capabilities. Major Park looked up from his intelligence station. Captain, our computers have been analyzing the data they downloaded from our systems. Based on what they accessed, they now know our crew size, our basic weapons capabilities, and our mission parameters. Do they know about our classified systems? Unlikely. Ma'am, those are kept on isolated networks. But they know enough to understand that we're a military vessel on a combat mission. This was both good and bad news. The aliens knew they were dealing with a warship, which should make them cautious. But they also knew enough about human capabilities to plan an effective attack if that was their intention. Captain? Communications. Officer Bryant reported, "We're receiving a response from the alien vessel." Put it on screen. The main display showed a blue-scaled alien face with large orange eyes. The creature looked nervous, even frightened. When it spoke, its voice was translated by the ship's computer systems. Captain Chen, I am Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian exploration vessel Mindful Observer. We meant no hostile action. We were simply trying to understand your species before making contact. We did not know that scanning would be considered an attack. Sarah studied the alien commander's face and body language. He seemed genuinely surprised by her reaction, but that could be an act. More importantly, he had admitted to conducting detailed scans without permission. Commander Veltar, Sarah replied, in human space, conducting unauthorized scans of a military vessel is considered preparation for attack. You now possess detailed intelligence about our ship and crew. Explain why we should not consider you a threat. The alien commander looked even more nervous. Sarah could see other aliens in the background of the transmission, all of them appearing frightened. Either they were very good actors, or they had not expected this level of response. Captain, we are peaceful explorers, Veltar said. We meant no harm. We only wanted to learn about your species before introducing ourselves. Sarah was not convinced. If you're peaceful explorers, why do you have advanced scanning technology capable of penetrating our computer systems? And why didn't you attempt communication before scanning us? The alien commander seemed to struggle with these questions. Finally, he said, We always study new species before making contact. It helps us communicate better. We did not realize your people would see this as threatening. Sarah exchanged glances with her intelligence officer. Major Park shook his head slightly, indicating he was not convinced by the alien's explanation. Commander Veltar, Sarah said, you will now submit to a complete scan of your vessel by our systems. If you refuse, we will assume you have something to hide and act accordingly. The alien commander's face went pale. Sarah could see him talking quickly with other aliens off-screen. Finally, he turned back to the camera. Captain, we will allow your scans, but please understand, we are not equipped for combat. We are a science vessel. Sarah smiled coldly. Then you have nothing to worry about. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of the Mindful Observer with his hearts pounding. The human captain had just demanded to scan their ship, and her tone made it clear this was not a request. It was an order backed by enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Sir, Communications Officer Zero whispered. What do we do? Veltar looked around at his crew. Every face showed the same expression. Terror. They had awakened something that should have stayed sleeping, and now they were trapped in a situation none of them understood. We comply, Veltar said quietly. We have no choice. He activated the communication channel to the human ship. Captain Chen, we will allow your scans. Our ship is open to your inspection. The human captain's face remained cold and professional. Scanning now. Do not power up any systems or attempt to interfere with our sensors, or we will consider it a hostile act. Veltar nodded quickly. Understood, Captain. The channel closed, and immediately the Mindful Observer began experiencing the most thorough scan it had ever received. The human scanning technology was crude compared to Zephyrian systems, but it was powerful and aggressive. Where Zephyrian scans were gentle and careful, human scans attacked their way through every system like an invasion. Sir, Crix reported, his voice shaking. They're scanning everything. Our power systems, our computer networks, our crew quarters, even our food storage. And they're not being careful about it. Veltar could feel the ship's systems straining under the aggressive scan. Lights flickered as power was diverted to handle the intrusion. Several computer terminals reset themselves as the human scan overwhelmed their processors. Are we in any danger? Veltar asked. Not from the scan itself, Crix replied. But sir, they're accessing our database. They're learning everything about us, just like we learned about them. Veltar realized with growing horror that the humans would soon know about Zephyrian civilization. They would learn about the peaceful collective, about their advanced technology, about their completely defenseless planets. And they would learn, all of this while pointing enough weapons at the mindful observer to turn it into space dust. How long until they're finished? Veltar asked. Several more minutes, sir. They're being very thorough. On the human battleship, Captain Sarah Chen studied the incoming data from their scans of the alien vessel. What she was learning confused her more than anything she had encountered in 20 years of military service. Major Park, she called to her intelligence officer. What are you seeing? Major Park looked up from his station with a puzzled expression. Captain, this doesn't make sense. Their ship has no weapons, none at all. No missile launchers, no energy cannons, no defensive systems beyond basic shields. Could they be hidden? No, ma'am. Our scans are detecting everything down to their dinner plates. This ship literally cannot fight. Sarah frowned. A ship with no weapons was either incredibly confident or incredibly stupid. Given what she had learned about these aliens, she was starting to suspect it might be the latter. What about their crew? She asked. Scientists, Captain. All of them. No military personnel, no security forces, no combat specialists. They're exactly what they claim to be. Explorers. This information should have been reassuring, but it made Sarah more suspicious instead. A species advanced enough to build starships, but naive enough to send them into unknown space without weapons was either very brave or very foolish. Captain, Lieutenant Commander Torres reported. I'm reading their computer files now. You need to see this. Sarah walked over to the tactical station where Torres was translating alien data. What have you found? Ma'am, these aliens belong to something called the Zephyrian Collective. It's a federation of 17 different species, all of them peaceful. They haven't had a war in over 300 years. Sarah stared at the information. On the screen. 300 years without war? That was impossible. Every human government had been at war with someone within the past decade. Are you sure about this data? Sarah asked. Yes, ma'am. Their records are very detailed. The last military conflict in their space ended in 1723 by their calendar. Since then, they've focused entirely on exploration, science, and diplomacy. Sarah tried to understand what kind of civilization could exist without warfare. In her experience, peace was just the time between battles when everyone prepared for the next war. What do they do when other species threaten them? Sarah asked. Torres consulted his readings. According to their files, ma'am, they've never been threatened. Every species they've encountered has been peaceful. They seem to think that's normal. This was disturbing information. Either these aliens lived in a very different part of the galaxy, or they were incredibly lucky. Sarah suspected it was the former. Captain, Major Park called out. I'm reading their exploration reports. In 300 years of space travel, they've never encountered a military vessel. They didn't even know such things existed until today. Sarah began to understand why the alien commander had seemed so confused by her reaction. These people had never seen a warship because they lived in a part of space where warships didn't exist. What else can you tell me about them? Sarah asked. Major Park continued reading. They're technologically advanced but completely defenseless. Their ships are designed for long-range exploration and scientific research. Their society values cooperation, learning, and peaceful contact with new species. Sarah realized that she was dealing with something unprecedented, a genuinely peaceful alien civilization. In her military career, she had fought against the Mars colonies, the Jupiter Mining Consortium, and the Outer System Alliance. Every human government was militaristic because the galaxy was a dangerous place, but apparently not all of it was dangerous. Captain, Torres reported, our scan is complete. Their ship checks out exactly as they claimed. No weapons, no military technology, no threats of any kind. Sarah made her decision. Stand down from combat alert but maintain targeting locks. Open a channel to the alien commander. Commander Veltar's face appeared on the main screen. He looked even more frightened than before, if that was possible. Commander Veltar, Sarah said, our scans confirm that you are not equipped for combat. However, you now possess detailed intelligence about a human military vessel. This creates a security problem for us. The alien commander looked confused. Captain, we have no intention of using any information against you. We only wanted to understand your people. That may be true, Sarah replied, but you now know the capabilities of our ship and crew. From a military standpoint, you represent a potential intelligence leak. Veltar seemed to understand the implications. What are you going to do? Sarah considered her options. Standard military protocol would be to classify the aliens as a potential security threat and take appropriate action. But these creatures were clearly no threat to anyone. Commander, I'm going to make you an offer, Sarah said finally. You're going to return to your people and report that you encountered a human vessel. You will tell them that humans are a military species and that any contact with human ships should be avoided. In return, we will not pursue or threaten your vessel. Veltar nodded quickly. Yes, Captain, we understand. We will avoid human space in the future. Good. But, Commander, there's something else you need to understand. The humans you met today represent one of the more reasonable factions of our species. There are other human governments that would not have been as patient with your scanning activities. The alien commander's face went even paler. Other governments? Humans are divided into multiple competing factions, all of them armed and ready for war. You were fortunate to encounter United Earth forces rather than the Mars Colonial Navy or the Jupiter Defense Fleet. Sarah could see the alien commander struggling to process this information. A species so violent that it fought wars with itself was probably beyond his ability to comprehend. Captain, Veltar said quietly, may I ask why your people fight so much? Sarah considered the question. How could she explain human nature to a creature from a civilization that hadn't known war for 3 centuries? Commander, humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to fight because fighting was the only way to survive. When we reached space, we brought that lesson with us. But surely you can learn to live in peace like we have. Sarah almost smiled at the alien's naivety. Commander, we've been trying to learn that lesson for thousands of years. We're not very good students. She closed the communication channel and turned to her crew. Helm, set course for the next patrol sector. We're done here. As the Retribution moved away from the alien vessel, Sarah made a note in her log. Encountered peaceful alien species. No threat to human interests. Recommend avoiding future contact to prevent diplomatic incidents. Meanwhile, on the Mindful Observer, Commander Veltar was composing a very different kind of report. Emergency transmission to High Council, he dictated to his communications officer. Have encountered human species. Extremely dangerous. Recommend immediate classification as avoid at all costs. Humans are militaristic beyond our ability to comprehend. They have turned warfare into both science and art. No Zephyrian vessel should approach human space under any circumstances. He paused, thinking about Captain Chen and her crew of 800 trained killers.